Dave, good morning. How are you, sir?
I am good. I just got down to Florida here yesterday.
Lucky you.
Trying to get settled in here. Wish I was still in Chicago. Wish those Bears were still going, but it is what it is, and it's a great year. So now it's time to kind of try to get my golf game in order. You know?
What's the biggest reason the season ended Sunday, Dave?
Oh, I think, you know what? I think just, I wanted to say consistency on defense, but on Sunday it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
It truly wasn't the case. It's the turnovers. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
You know, if you just held up there, if you didn't know who played, and I came on the air and I said, and then you asked me, hey, coach, one team had 3 turnovers, the other team had none. Who won the game? It's a pretty simple answer to me, honestly.
Dave, how do I say this? Caleb Williams made a couple plays that are just extraordinary, just over the last 2 games, beating Green Bay, and in that game, the touchdown pass to Cole Kmet. I don't know that I've seen anything like it or will see anything like it again. It was absolutely amazing. He also now has 5 interceptions in 2 games. That's on his record, that he threw 5 interceptions in 2 games. Now, I don't know how to balance the extraordinary plays he's capable of making with some mistakes. There were some mistakes made.
Right. No, it's 7 interceptions all year.
Exactly.
5 in the last 2 games. I guess people would like to rationalize it by saying, well, when you get in the playoffs, the competition is better. Well, that is true. Just to some extent, that is true. I think you've got to look at the decisions and say, wow, was the pressure that much more on them, the pass rush? Boy, were these guys just that much more talented covering? I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I think that I think Caleb has done it so many times, week after week after week, and it's worked out for him and the Bears that that he was confident then that he'd be able to not throw those interceptions, and somebody would make a play, he would, or the receivers would, or somebody, and they could get by without it. The thing that I do like, and I think the people need to recognize this, that this kid's not just throwing the ball up for grabs, in my opinion. When he threw that interception, the last one, his look on his face wasn't like, oh, man, I can't believe I did that, or the expression was, it was almost reading his lips like, DJ, I was counting on you coming under the safety and coming across. You know what I mean? I mean, he understood what he was doing, I guess is what I'm saying. And, yeah, it was an interception's an interception. I'm not avoiding that. But I'm saying that we've seen quarterbacks throw it up for grabs.
Right, and it wasn't that. It wasn't Brett Favre throwing 7 picks. I got you.
Right, and have some idea, and the quarterback not having any idea what he did. He knew exactly what he was trying to do, and it did make sense. I mean, it would have had a chance to be a completion.
Dave, as we look at the game, it's interesting that with the game removed a little bit, we're starting to have this kind of weird blame game go on where everybody wants to get a final kind of explanation. DJ Moore, why didn't he cut inside and go in front of the safety? Why did Caleb throw that pass if he didn't know where the receiver was going to be? Whose fault was it? You heard from Caleb. He said some good things. You have not heard from DJ Moore, and apparently there are some people furious about that.
Well, I don't know what happened after the game. I mean, they said that he didn't talk to the media or something like that.
He hasn't yet, but
he was in the tent for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, he looked like he was in the training room.
And then they couldn't find him yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that that was strange, but it seems like every game DJ has something, right, where he kind of limps off a little bit. Maybe I'm just imagining that, it's whether it's not the 10th, it's back on the bench, and you think he's done. Every game he gives you the impression that he's hurt, and then he comes back and he catches the winning play. So I don't know, but him is one of the leaders, one of the best players on our team. It would have been nice to visit with him after the game, and get his thoughts. So I get that part of it.
Dave, what did you think about the decision early from Ben Johnson to go for it on fourth down early instead of taking the points? In retrospect, obviously they could have used the points, but at the same time, when you expect maybe your defense not to be able to stop the Rams, you understand why we want a touchdown in that situation. What did you think at the time?
Yeah, I do. I get if that was his reasoning, then I guess you can somewhat rationalize it. I cannot, okay? I'm ticking, but I'm kind of a little bit more on the conservative end of it. I've always believed in taking the points, particularly when it's 4th and 5. So, I would have kicked the field goal. I'm not second-guessing. You guys know me well enough. Mully's covered me. I mean, that was always kind of my mentality. But I do understand that that's scare of the defense. But because I will give Ben credit for this now. As the game went on and our defense really started tightening up and playing exceptionally well, he did punt the football a couple of times in fourth down situations. So I could see where, as the game went on, he started getting more confident that we can punt the ball and our defense can stop him and we'll get the ball back. So I saw that happen. It wasn't just him talking about it. He did do that. But in that situation, I always liked momentum too. When you are at home, the fans were in a frenzy. You take the lead, you got the momentum. That place would have just caught fire, and it was a little bit of a buzzkill, when you throw an interception.
Dave, I'm very curious. This is a first-year head coach. The Bears have kind of exceeded expectations. We all understand that, and they were very close to playing this weekend in Seattle. Had that turnover not happened, but it did. Their season's over, and now you look toward the future. And I'm just wondering, as a man who has come in to different teams at different times and then had to rework your roster, what do you learn over the course of 1 year with a group? And is it a fact that you're always kind of thinking, man, I could use this guy? I mean, you guys were in Miami and Olin was a free agent and you went to him and you wanted to bring him with you there. That happens when you have a player who can deliver. You want to get that guy. Does Ben Johnson have to be ruthless about rebuilding this team? How much power do you give to Dennis Allen as he weighs the players who can do or can't do something that he needs?
Well, I was looking over their free agent list yesterday on the plane, and we're in pretty good shape. We truly are from a free agent standpoint. And the great news for the Bears, in my opinion, the rookies, guys, they made a major impact on the success of this team. And they're all going to be back, obviously Loveland and we can go Luther, we can go right on down the board, particularly on offense. But and then the free agent guys that we signed, the one thing that Ryan Poles has done, he signed some outstanding, talented guys, but we got a good guys. You look at those offensive line, they're solid guys that we brought in. I mean, Jared on defense, solid guy, right? So we got some really, I think, Byard. I mean, they don't come any better than him. You hear that guy talk, and when he's got substance to him. So I think Ben's got and Ryan Poles got to really like our team. Obviously, they got to keep upgrading. And we used to always talk about let's upgrade the bottom 10, 15% of your roster. When you get these real good teams, and we went through that at Dallas, we were the youngest team in the league that first Super Bowl. So now what do? Well, you start upgrading from the bottom up sometimes, and that strengthens your team as these players develop down the road. So now, with that being said, every year is a new year, guys, and you might have the same players back. You don't know what's going to happen with injuries, right? The Bears got healthy at the right time. I mean, all we got to do is look at Washington, as crazy as that was last year. I mean, would they go to the final game, right? And then this year,
NFC Championship game. Yeah.
So I mean, you got the injury part, and then you're dealing with a lot of individuals. You have success. They're young. They're married. They're girlfriends. You got personal things that come up. I'm not going to get it, but I've had players coming back at you that they were solid guys. I could count on them, and they had a family problem come up, and it just took it off the wheels. You know what I mean? So when you're on a roll like the Bears were this year, boy, you take it as far as you possibly can, and I think the Bears did that.
Dave, when you look at the Bears and you see that they won 7 games in the final 2 minutes when they were trailing, and we talk about how magical of a season this was. What about this do you believe is sustainable? Because going into next year, as we all know and have said, everything changes. Do you think that the way they won this year or the winning will be sustainable?
Well, I would say this. The first year, there's always a new sense of energy on most clubs, and players are I better get the job done or I'm going to be gone tomorrow. I think, you got to get that sense of urgency back. And, I would look at 2 things. One, you can't count on winning games in the last 2 minutes as many times, but let's not lose sight. And I said this on your show last week. Caleb is not Patrick Mahomes. That's not what I'm saying. So listeners get that right. But he does have Patrick Mahomes' qualities to make plays that you say you can't make and to do things when the game's on the line. And the Chiefs did that all the way through Mahomes' career. And every time, when they were in their peak, we always said, well, they might be behind or the game's close, but Mahomes is going to find a way with his feet, with his arms, with his magic somehow to win this game. And they took him to Super Bowl. So I think that Caleb's got that. So is it sustainable, David? I would say it would make me nervous to say that's how we're going to win games as the Bears. Now, 3 or 4 games a year like that, I think that you can do it. I think Caleb is capable of doing it, and we will do it. We will do it. But, 7 or 8 games, that's stretching it, in my opinion.
Dave, it's interesting because you've taught us so many things about football and you've learned so much yourself over the years. One of the things you said is when you were, Jimmy said this, that draft players bring in players that don't need you to coach them. In other words, bring in guys that can do things that you can't coach. I'm just curious, can you do that later in the draft? Do you get more solid players because you're not projecting or you're not imagining something that might be there that isn't? How do you go about improving this team in the draft when you're not picking high, when you're not in the top 10?
Well, the guy would have to have a outstanding quality when you're not picking right off the top. Excuse me, that everybody's looking at. That's what scouting is. That's you start studying kids over years. But the thing about talent, and I'm going to bring this. That's a good point, Mully, because what we used to talk about back at the University of Miami is where it started, because we had some characters there, as you guys know. But they to say the least, yeah, God. But anyway, and Jimmy said what the phrase was: let's get players that do things that we don't have to coach. Because if you got to coach a kid to do every step right, then step left, then step right, you're not going to be as good as the guy that does it naturally. Well, in that Green Bay game when Caleb came back, if you remember, Ben Johnson said this: he said, Caleb said it, I'm sorry, in his post game. What was the conversation between you and Ben? And Ben said, I think it was one of the two said, hey, kid, I need you now. Go do your thing. Ben said that. I'm sorry, it wasn't Caleb.
Yes.
Ben said it. I need you now. Go do your thing. And that's making reference to, hey, I'm going to dial up a play, but you got to do what you got to do to win this game for us. And I think Caleb falls into that category of, he's going to do some things that you don't coach. I mean, so yes, there's you're always looking for those type of players, but boy, they're tough to find.
Dave, got to ask you about this because it's in the news and you're kind of related and responsible in some ways. Jeff Hafley is the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And it was back in 2006 where he was just an eager young coach looking for an opportunity, and you hired him at Pitt as a graduate assistant. Slept in his office, as the story goes, from what I understand, and you were there for him every step of the way. You've got to have a sense of pride when he is now going to take a job that you once had in an organization that you know well. Just wonder what your thoughts were when you got the news yesterday that Jeff Hafley is the new coach of the Dolphins.
Well, I talked to Jeff. I've been talking to him all along. Okay, I'll be honest with you guys. I talked to him last night. He was at the college game in Miami, and that's fantastic for him. Miami needs a lot of work. I can tell you this right now, that Jeff is going to bring toughness to him. He's going to bring defense emphasis to him. The biggest issue that you got with most of these jobs is the quarterback thing. What are you going to do with Tua and the whole offensive system? So I'm happy for him. I know he was telling me, he's got a great relationship. Obviously, the general manager for our listeners, the Dolphins just hired a new GM. He came from Green Bay. So him and Jeff have worked together. So they talk the same language as far as the type of players they want, on and on and on. So that had a lot to do with it. And then Troy, I talked to Troy last week. Troy was involved in the general manager search for the Dolphins, helping him out, consulting, and then he stayed on with the head coaching thing too. So I know Troy felt good about Jeff also. I talked to him.
Are you going to be assistant head coach?
No. I told him I'm the second winningest coach at the Dolphins behind Don Shula, and I said, just, Jeff, do good down there, but don't be worrying about breaking any of these records. No, I'm kidding you. I hope the Dolphins go to the Super Bowl next year. I'm kidding you guys.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And Dave, it's very interesting just because teams are hiring defensive coaches. It felt like everybody wanted Sean McVay to sneeze on you, or you weren't capable of taking it.
You know what's crazy? I saw this morning. I got up and I put the TV on, and there's still 6 jobs open, guys. It's amazing. I mean, think about that. And I don't know if I did it on your show or with Spiggs and Lawrence, but the NFL, people have asked me, why is this happening? And I said, the NFL is a bunch of whatever is hot, okay? And teams get into running. After that Bears game, with them talking about the Bears using 2 and 3 tight ends, and then they said, well, the team that uses 3 tight ends more than anybody in the NFL is the Rams. You know what every coach at every clinic in high school, college, and NFL is going to be talking about this year? Everybody's going. If you're a tight end out there as a young player, you're in business, okay? Because the tight ends is going to be the trend. That's going to be the trend. You watch what happens, and that's what. And you know what happened with this coaching stuff? These owners are sitting there and they're seeing first-year head coach at New England go from last to first. Carolina, last to first. Bears, last to first. Jacksonville, last to first. And they're saying, what do I need this veteran coach for? I can get a young guy to come in, and we'll go from last place to first place. I won't have to pay him as much money, and it'll be fresh, ideas or whatever. I guarantee you that's the mentality now. Let's get, all these other teams can do it. We can do it too. Let's pull the plug and move on.
Dave, you know Hafley well. How much does that damage the Green Bay Packers? Are the Bears helped by him leaving?
Well, I think so. Because you're going to get a new system. I don't know who he's going to hire. I haven't talked to him yet. We're going to talk here, probably today. But who's he taking with him as his coordinators?
Right.
Usually when a coach leaves, he takes a couple guys with him off the staff. The contracts are different now, but if it's a promotion, so it'll be interesting to see. But, yeah, I say so. The one thing Jeff does, when I hired him at Pitt, he is a great communicator. In other words, the players really like him. They respect him. He's great that way. So, he's got a great rapport. I know that for a fact with Parsons and all those guys at Green Bay. So, it'll be a little bit of change for him. Absolutely.
Dave, got to ask you your reaction to last night. Your beloved Hurricanes go down, but Indiana is a place that you contributed some tuition money to over the years with your daughters. What was your thoughts after last night's national championship victory by the Hoosiers?
Yeah, I contributed ticket money to them too, because they're all down there, and trust me, they nobody was reaching in their pocket. All they wanted was tickets from Dad. So, but no, seriously, you know what? I thought that Miami played well. I didn't have a problem with Miami. I thought they ran the ball. Their defensive line showed up big time. God, those guys are good. I loved it. Jason Taylor doing a great job. And Indiana did what Indiana did. They ran the ball. They stayed balanced. They made plays when they had to. And at the end, we've always talked about it. A block kick for a touchdown is usually the determining factor in a game. And last night, that's what it was, fellas. That's what it was, a block kick. And Miami, even overcoming the block kick, they were driving to score a touchdown and win the game and threw the pick at the end. So I thought it was a great football game.
Right.
And, Mike Shanahan, the offensive coordinator at Indiana, he started for me for 3 years at Pitt, so I was texting with him last night.
Great.
I texted with Cignetti a little bit last night, too. I know him very well. So it was a great win for Indiana, but I thought Miami really did a great job.
I laughed to myself when I saw Adewale Ogunleye as the guy with the coin flip. You brought him into the NFL. You saw him when you were at the Indiana game, right?
We had a bye weekend, and I went down to see my daughters, and I talked to the team. They were playing Ohio State, I believe it was. And for some reason, my daughters didn't want to go to the game. They weren't very good back then, but I did. So I went to the game, and he got hurt. And so now I start asking questions, and everybody around me was saying, Coach, this guy's going to be a top 20 pick, a first rounder. He's leading the Big Ten in sacks. So I follow the story, and long story short, now it comes draft time, and we're sitting in there. I'm sitting with Rick Spielman and George Payton, and we got a red tag on him. He just had surgery. He's on crutches.
Sure.
And I said, so let's sign this kid. I think there's something here. We can rehab him. So I went down to Wayne Huizenga's office, and I said, hey, Wayne, he owned the team, and I said, I'd like to sign this free agent. You're not going to like him when you see him come down the hall on crutches. Okay? It was my first year. I said, but have faith on this thing. This kid is a player. And Wayne said, do what you got to do. So we brought in Wale, and we rehabbed him. I'm talking about from ground level. And he just was on injured reserve all year, but he started running. And, the next year, I think he had 13 or 14 sacks, whatever it was. And, eventually he got the big contract with the Bears. So that's it. Great story on
Well done, Dave.